Hey everybody. The purpose of this video is to go over your final project for the Iron Man book, just in case you forgot or were not able to be in class whenever we went over it on Tuesday. So this particular project is adapted from what I would normally do in a non-COVID, non-multiple snow day world. But it still uses all of the skills that we have been practicing of character development throughout the entire book. So basically, what it's going to be is a storyboard project. So let me just kind of go through all of these different steps with you and the packet that you guys have access to in Google Classroom. First, the main purpose of this is to build on your knowledge of the main characters of the book. You're going to be able to utilize your creativity whenever you are doing this, and you are going to be presenting everything in a specific format. To make this easier for everyone, I have broken down this project into 5 different steps that you can see on the screen. Step number 1 is scene and character selection. Step number 2 is questioning, and then script writing, storyboarding, and then step 5, if you see that, is an option for some extra credit. Now, I know that we've had extra credit through both Around the Horn rounds, but this is going to be one of the last actual options for extra credit for the entire semester. Nevertheless, having some extra credit on a summative. There might be 1 or 2 things here and there, but this will be your last opportunity to have extra credit on a summative assessment. So keep that in mind as we are going through the rest of this. So for step 1 and how you are going to go about this is to choose a particular character that you are going to do some analysis of in this creative format that I'm going to show you here in a second. How this is going to work is like a post-game interview of the character. We watched that example with Weird Al Yankovic in class. You've seen those types of things at sports games when they pull a player off to the side. How do you feel after you just did this? Or it could be an actual press conference like the video that we watched. Yours is going to be an adaptation of that. So the first thing you need to figure out is which character you are going to choose from the book, because you're only going to be interviewing a single character. And to make things a little bit more complicated, you may not choose Bo. Any other character out of the book is fair game, but we have done enough guided analysis of Bo that we know all about him. Instead, I want you to dig a little deeper, not necessarily that you need to watch The Princess and the Frog, but I need you to dig a little deeper and look at a different character. Once you have chosen your character, I want you to go through in your packet right here, type out which character you are choosing and explain why you chose that character. The next thing that you are going to need to do is choose a scene out of the book that strongly uses that character. So if I were using Bo, which you are not, I could do the race. I could do the time whenever he had to slam the door 1.5 million times for his dad. I can imagine the time that whenever he was talking to Lion after their talk, any anger management session, like any time that he confronted Wyrak, those would all be some good options for scenes to choose. Depending on the character that you choose, it can be anything, but you want to choose something that has something behind it. You don't want to choose like the random dog character that shows up on one page. There's not enough to really analyze there. Once you choose the scene that you want to focus on, I want you to briefly describe the scene here in this middle box and give like the page number or page numbers where that scene takes place. And then finally, in this bottom box where it says character actions, that is where I'm going to ask you to break down the things that your character actually does in that scene. You don't necessarily need to make this very long. It can be some simple bullet points. So-and-so does this and this and this. And that's all you really need to do for step 1. Step 2 is where you are going to start actually planning out the interview portion. When you or whoever you are pretending is interviewing this character goes in with the microphone and says, "So, how do you feel after whatever, blah, 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 blah." For the purposes of this interview and this storyboard, you are going to need to ask your character 3 questions. You can add more questions if you want by duplicating the slide that you can see here on the screen, but it's not like an actual requirement. But if you feel like your character has more things to say than just these 3 questions, feel free to do that. That's kind of an interesting way to kind of make this your own as opposed to something that's kind of formulaic. For your questions, these are the questions that you are going to be asking your character. And try to make them specific to your character as opposed to the generic questions that we watched in the Weird Al Yankovic video. If it is a question that could be easily answered or even given the same answer by every single character in the book, then it is not specific enough. You are trying to formulate these questions so that the answers can show a little bit about that character. On this page in your packet, I also have some tips for writing some good questions. And those are things that we might see a little bit later, maybe like in the rubric. So they are definitely some good tips that you might want to look out for. Once you have your questions written, it's time to start actually looking at writing the script. And the script is basically the answers to the question. And that is where most of your analysis is going to go in. That is where a lot of your points, whenever we get to the rubric, is coming in as well. So basically, you look at this as a format of question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. The questions you just strategically came up with. And now the answers are showing all about the character. Just like with writing questions, for step 3, I do have some tips for writing some realistic responses. Again, we might see those a little bit later, like in the rubric. So they are definitely some good tips to read through and try to make sure that your answers follow those. One other thing that is in this script that I forgot to mention when I said it was like question, answer, question, answer, question, answer, is that there needs to be a summary of the scene that you chose in step 1. You've already listed out character actions and have a brief description of the scene with the page number, so you can always go back to those steps there to see what you need to do. Because the following couple slides in your packet are where you are going to be typing out these parts of your script. So the next page is for the scene summary. In those top bubbles, you'll have the scene and page number that you have from step 1, and you will write that out here. And then your actual summary of that scene goes down here at the bottom. And that should actually be in paragraph form. Summarize that one particular scene that you chose to focus on for your character. Then the next 3 slides, the next 3 pages in your packet are identical. And that is the question, answer, question, answer. So question number 1, you will type out the question that you came up with in the previous step up here. And then the scripted response from your character goes down here. I know that that is a very large bubble, and depending on your character might not actually want to talk that much. It all depends on the character that you chose and the scene that you chose. So don't feel like you have to fill up that entire box. But also don't feel like your answer can just be like a yes or no. If your question can be answered with a yes or a no, it's not a good enough question. Then the next one's the exact same, only question number 2, and then finally question number 3. So you start off with a summary and then have questions 1, 2, and 3. Whew. Okay, so I know that this is a lot, but this is where the adaptation comes in. Those first 3 steps are pretty much identical from what I have done in the pre-COVID times and the before snow day times. This is where the adaptations come in. Instead of actually making a video, which has always been what I have done in the past, I'm just going to ask you to storyboard how this would look if it were actually going to be put on film. A storyboard looks like this down here at the bottom, where it has a brief little image and then a description of what happens in that particular shot or that particular scene. So step 4 is all about planning out the visuals that would accompany that interview. Think about the Weird Al video, think about any YouTube video that you have ever watched or anything that you have ever created. There's close-ups, wide views, cut scenes. Those things are all planned ahead of time, and that is what your storyboard is going to do. For the next slide, which I'm going to show you here in a second, you are going to be doing a visual description, which means that you are not actually drawing. Instead, you are writing out and describing each of the following things. The location of that shot. Is your interview going to be like imagining you were like actually going into the book? Would the interview be like right on the sidelines? Did you pull Hudgy like right after everything that happened with his dad and interviewed him right there at his house? Is this something that is taking place at the school? Is this something where you're having a press conference somewhere? Where is it taking place? What time of day? You can think about the camera angles. Who is in the shot? Is it just a close up of Shelly's face? Or is it something that is a little bit wider and you can see the basketball court in the background? How would you want that to look on the screen? In addition to each of the 3 questions, you will also need to be thinking about your summary. Would it be a cut scene where it would actually be playing back? Would it be an interview giving a recap before the actual interview? Is there an instant replay of that particular scene? How would you want that to be? So down at the bottom, if you are trying to follow along a little bit, those last 3 bullet points just kind of summarize the last couple minutes that I was talking. So if you want to read that instead of like rewinding the video, I wouldn't hold that against you. This is the storyboard slide, and this is where your descriptions are actually going to go. Scene number 1 is going to be your summary of the scene that you chose, and then 2, 3, and 4 would be your questions. So again, you're going to be answering these questions that are here in this middle bit right here and kind of describing them on that slide. And that is the actual bulk of the project. And now here comes the interesting part, and the part that some of you guys may have been thinking about throughout this entire video, the rubric. And I know that it is crooked, and I could not figure out a way to fix it because my technology skills are not as good as I wish they would be. But I have also posted this rubric for you in Google Classroom in its own separate little document. So if you are having a hard time like turning your head sideways or turning your computer sideways to actually read this rubric, you have it in a separate document as well so that you can look at it. And this is breaking down every single success criteria that I have for this project. There are 5 different categories for the project, and they're all weighted differently. So as you go through and look at this project, which we will later, you can see the different point values and what is worth the most, et cetera, et cetera. And now, bum, 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 if you choose to do extra credit, that is step number 5. If you are brave, if you have the technology skills, and if you want to do it, because again, it is optional, you can actually create the video. You can do this through Legos or yourself and then yourself dressed up as a hat. Or you can recruit somebody to be in your video with you. That is up to you entirely. And since it's extra credit, I'm not going to give like really extra success criteria or anything attached to it. But if you want to do it, that option is there. And it was going to give you an extra 10% on top of the actual assignment grade. So the actual assignment itself is worth 100 points. If you got full credit on the assignment and you filmed it, you could get 110 out of 100. So it is worth your while if you choose to do it, especially since this is like the last actual time that we're going to do extra credit for any of this. If you choose to do the extra credit, you are going to be getting a little bit of extra time, and you are welcome to take that time before getting your video in. The actual like storyboard packet itself is going to be due on Sunday night at midnight. However, if you choose to do the video, you have another couple days, and it is not actually due until March 3rd, that Wednesday by midnight. So pack it no matter what, has to be due Sunday at midnight, but if you choose to film, you have another couple days. Again, for any of this, let me know if you have any questions. I want to be able to help you out, especially since this is our first large summative. So again, if you need anything, let me know. Otherwise, I hope this was helpful. Bye, everybody.